So for the past couple of days, we've been reviewing writing equations in three different forms: slope-intercept form, point-slope form, and standard form. So in addition to writing equations in the three different forms, we're also going to be doing correlation of data, inverse function, system of equations, and graphing lines. So there's already several videos explaining writing equations, reviewing the worksheets we've already done. Let's jump to correlation of data, which is back from section 4.5. Now, this is one of the worksheets you got in class. Do me a favor, where it says positive correlation, let's write down, like in a little cloud, positive m, which means positive slope, which means from left to right, it's going to be going up. So right next to positive correlation, write down positive m value. That means that it will be going up from left to right. Same thing with negative correlation. Write down negative slope, which means that it's going to be going down from left to right. So with those two little notes, you should understand if there's positive correlation or negative correlation or no correlation. So this section of the midterm is like 3 points, really, because when you look at this thing, all you're doing is analyzing the chart, analyzing the graph. Okay, so this is obviously about exercising. And is there a positive correlation or is there a negative correlation? Positive correlation. Okay, perfect. Okay, and in addition to that, they want us to write out an explanation, understanding of this graph. So what could he say based on the info given to you on this graph? What could you say?
There's a positive correlation because the slope is going upward.
Okay, we got the positive correlation down. You get points for that. But what else could we say that as what happens, what happens? As
That you're burning more.
as time increases during the exercise, the longer you exercise, the more calories you burn. And that's what we want to write, an understanding of the graph. So on the midterm, on the practice midterm tomorrow, I want to ask you to analyze the graph, tell me if it's positive correlation or negative correlation or no correlation, and then on top of that, write down a sentence of your understanding of this graph. And that would be, as time increases in the workout, you end up burning more calories, right? There's positive correlation, and as the time increases of your workout, the more calories you burn. Let's check out this next one right here. This is talking about a librarian, probably. And it's talking about the amount of books borrowed and the amount of fines with regards to dollar amounts, right? So what could we say about this one? If you check out more books, what usually happens? That's the right answer, which means you can't say anything, right? There is no correlation, right? You can't say, oh, the more books you check out, the more fines you get. That's not the case here. It's not positive correlation. It's not negative correlation. These dots are all over the place, so there's no correlation. So that's what you would say, no correlation. No core. And you would say you can't conclude anything. Okay? So there's only like one or two of these, but it's really easy. How about this guy? Positive correlation or negative correlation? Positive, right? From left to right, it is going up. Okay, it is going up from left to right. Now, what's your understanding of it? The newer the car dealership, or no. The more a car dealership, what could I say? As the years go by on a car dealership, their revenue increases. As the years go by in a car dealership, their revenue increases. That's the positive correlation. So let's move on, not spend that much more time on that one. Let's move on to, which is inverse functions. Now this guy, it's super easy. I did already a couple of these. Before we even check it out, let's write down some notes up here. To find the inverse, switch x and y and then solve for y. Once again, to find the inverse, switch x and y and solve for y. And this is true only when you have an actual equation, right? When you have an equation with x's and y's, how do you find the inverse? You switch x and y and then you solve for y. Now the thing is, if you look at number 3, it's not even an equation, it's just a input-output table, an XY table. So all you got to do on the XY table is switch the X's and the Y's. So for example, this will be -2, comma, -4. This will be -1, -2. This will be 1, 0. This will be 0, 2. This will be 2, 4. So that's the inverse of the original XY table. You just switch the X and Y values. It's like free points on the midterm, guys. Cool? And it could be given to you in a table like that, or it could be written out like this. So how do you find the inverse there? Just simply switch -3, 5, -9, 2. Switch the order. Switch the X's and the Y's. But check this out. Up here it says to find the inverse, switch X and Y, then solve for Y. So what if you did have an equation like down here, number 13, you have Y equals, f of X is really the same thing as Y, by the way. You have Y equals 3/4 X plus 9. How do you find the inverse? You switch X and Y, and then you solve for Y. So I'm really going to have X equals 3/4 Y plus 9. And now I'm going to solve for Y. So how do I start getting Y by itself? I could easily get rid of the plus 9 by subtracting 9 and subtracting 9. So I'll have X minus 9 equals 3/4 Y. Now if I want to get rid of the 3/4, I could multiply everything by 4/3 to get rid of all of the 3/4 at once. Or I could just simply multiply everything by 4 to get rid of the fraction. I'll get 4X minus 36 equals 3Y. My final step would be to divide by 3, divide by 3, divide by 3. So Y equals 4 divided by 3X minus 12, because 36 divided by 3 is 12. So there's my inverse function of the original number 13. You got it? So I did a couple of these already, like this guy right here. I switched this is Y, there's Y, and there's the X. So I switched X and Y, and then I got rid of the 5, added 5, added 5. X plus 5 equals 8Y. I divided by 8, divide by 8. That's my answer. But if on your multiple choice test next week you don't see this answer, they might split the 8 to the X and to the 5. So it could be 1/8 X plus 5/8. But on tomorrow's test, since it's open response, you could leave this one or this one. Let's go to the graphs. Now remember, to find the inverse, you got to switch X and Y and solve for Y. So what I did on this example, I took my original line, I found the B value, I found the slope, found my slope, found my B, I wrote my equation, and then I did all the work. I switched X and Y. That's ridiculous. Don't do that. What you should do is look at the line and realize that the inverse is simply switching X and Y. So if you actually have coordinates, all you got to do is switch X and Y. So check it out. When I look at the black line right there, this coordinate right here is -10, -8. So if I were to switch -10, -8, it would give me -8, -10. And if I graph -8, -10, I end up at this new dot. So if you simply look at the coordinates of your original line, like 10, -8, 0, -4, and 10, 0, and then just switch your X's and Y's, you'll have your new coordinate for your new graph. So instead of 0, -4, you're going to go to -4, 0. Instead of 10, 0, you're going to go 0, 10, and obviously you end up here at 0, 10. So you end up with your new red line from your original black line. Same thing here. Let's try this one. Let's find some coordinates that are nice. Here's a nice coordinate. Here's a nice coordinate. Looks like that last one's a nice coordinate. Let's label them. Well, this guy right here on the left is -6, -6. This guy right here is -4, +2. And the last one up there is -2, 10. So we're going to switch all the values. The -6, -6, if you switch the X and Y, it stays negative 6, negative 6. If you switch negative 4 and 2, it becomes 2 and 4. 2 and 4 is right here. And if you switch negative 2 and 10, it becomes 10 and negative 2. What?
You said 2 and 4, it's negative, it's 2 negative 4.
Good call. Let's erase that one. Negative 4 and 2. Switch it becomes 2 negative 4. Sorry about that. So 2 negative 4 is right here. And now it lines up. Now it makes sense. There's my inverse graph of the original black one. Here we go. Number 15. Let's find the inverse of this guy. Remember, f of x is really the same thing as y, and in order to find the inverse, you're going to switch x and y. So the very first thing to do would be to make that y an x, and then rewrite it, but make that x a y plus 5 over 4. So as you can see, the only thing I did was I took this x and this y and I switched them. So it's now x equals 3y plus 5 instead of 3x plus 5 over 4. Switch x and y, now solve for y. So you want to start getting y by itself. How do you get rid of something? You do the opposite. So the opposite of dividing by 4 is multiplying by 4. That'll cancel out. What you do to one side, do to the other. You're going to have 4x equals 3y plus 5. What do we do next? Minus 5. Minus 5. You're going to have 3y equals 4x minus 5. You can't actually take away numbers from x's. So now let's do the final step, which would be to divide by 3. And let's just divide the whole thing by 3 since neither of them are divisible by 3. So your final answer is y equals 4x minus 5 divided by 3. You got it? Okay, so there's going to be a couple of these on the midterm, a couple of these on tomorrow's test.